and welcome Karen, Michael, and Kevin for this Web3 Stronger Together Virtual Summit Day 2. First panel discussion, we will talk about the rise of DeFi, how it's disrupting traditional finance institution, if it's really doing it, if it will come in the future. So welcome again. Karen, could you quickly introduce yourself and please, as I ask to each speaker, why are you involved in Web3?
So first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's so nice to be joining this panel about DeFi, and it's really nice to be part of this virtual event and summit. So I'm currently acting as CMO at Fiat24. We're based in Switzerland. And maybe I'll just give a little intro to what we do, and then I'll touch on why I do what I do. But Fiat24 is the first core banking concept to be built entirely on the blockchain. We're on Ethereum layer 2. And why we do that is because we believe that digital currencies will impact the world in terms of innovation, efficiency, and global equality. And we really aim to be the leading tool in crypto spending. And we really aim to bring this new digital asset class to the masses as a real-world payment solution. And we are regulated, so we bring it in a way that bridges the gap between CeFi and DeFi. Personally, why I do what I do is because I'm really passionate about Web3 and everything that it can offer. I think Web2 has offered us a lot of great things, like a lot of great opportunities to be content creators, but we're definitely not owners. I think we don't even realize the extent to which we've handed over so much of our data and control to these global corporations. And if there's just a possibility that we can kind of control more, not only our digital identities, but what we're creating, what we're putting out there, that's a wonderful thing. And yeah, cryptocurrencies can really solve a lot of other issues in the world, but I guess we'll touch on that later.
Thank you, Karen. Kevin, welcome.
Yeah, first of all, also thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure being on here today and really excited for this discussion. So thanks everyone for joining too. Yeah, short about me. I'm coming from the startup world, own a small Web3 software agency. So as you might guess, I'm a smart contract engineer actually myself originally. And I also founded or own a small piece of a traditional finance company that is, let's say, works in a data analytics area of measuring bonds and stocks. And yeah, why am I doing this? Basically, coming from that traditional finance angle, I just see, especially in the last couple of 1-2 years, I saw a shift from those traditional finance people actually being excited about crypto themselves. And that's just crazy for me, right? And that gave me personally a lot of, let's say, motivation to pursue that field even more than I did before. And just, let's say, regaining some ownership, what was basically the original thought behind all of this. So
Thank you and welcome. Michael.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome again.
Thank you. And thank you for hosting me today. And thank you to Kevin and Karen for engaging in this conversation. Super excited to be here. So I'm Michael. I lead a product here for BCB within our markets division, which straddles two worlds. One is trading and the other one is yield. And in particular, with a focus on DeFi. So BCB Group is the world's leading crypto payment service provider, serving many of the largest in the industry. We provide over 30 currencies for FX, cryptocurrency, liquidity, digital asset custody, yield and Blink. And Blink is essentially BCB's free instant settlements network for its ecosystem. So originally it was spun up in 2017 as a response to corporate and institutional demand for essential infrastructure within payments for digital asset markets. And yeah, we've been growing since.
Welcome again.
Yeah, no, it's a real pleasure. Thank you.
So, guys, we can now start to dive on today's discussion, the rise of DeFi, and how it can disrupt, or it's disrupting the traditional finance. But before starting about debating about this, who would bring his or our definition of DeFi? What do we mean by DeFi? Who want to start? Karen, what is
Sure.
your definition of DeFi? We know it's finance, decentralized finance, but what does it mean? How is it different than the traditional finance?
Well, I think that when it comes to DeFi, I think at the core of it is really eliminating the intermediaries. So I think maybe we've all had the kind of experience already. Maybe if you want to do something like even something simple as crowdfunding using one of these platforms like Kickstarter, there's always like this intermediary in between. Everyone takes a fee and you kind of are dependent on the middleman. And I think at the heart of DeFi is taking out the middleman and just connecting people to do kind of peer-to-peer transactions so that it's cheaper and more efficient and perhaps more secure. So
Thank you, Karen. Kevin, as a smart contract developer, could you explain to people the role of the smart contract and in DeFi, in simple word, to our global audience? Because we don't talk only to Web3 people, we want also to engage people, and because we all talk about inclusivity, mass adoption. We don't want only to talk about it, but we want to do it, to contribute to do it. So let's talk also to all people who are not really familiar to the role of smart contract in DeFi. And Kirill just joined us. Hello, Kirill.
Yeah, sure. I will try to keep it simple. As Kevin already said, DeFi for me as well is removing or at least reducing those intermediaries. And what I see or heard from a lot of traditional finance people is the major advantage here is not being necessarily building some kind of trustless infrastructure, although that's something most of us want, right? But more about reducing those inefficiencies, right? Having a lot of different parties that all take their cut starts with just sending money across borders, right? Starts with a simple thing like that. And smart contracts come here handy because what are they? It's basically code, software code on the blockchain. Sounds fancy, sounds complicated, but in the end, it's just like every other code, software code in the world as well, except that you can change it afterwards. So basically, those rules, those if that happens, then this happens, is transparent for everyone that understands software code, can read that and understand that. And the original creators usually can change it. And if they can, everyone knows this or is able to see that as well. And that's, for me, and also from a tech perspective, one of the big advantages and definitions of DeFi. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome, Kirill. Could you quickly introduce yourself, explaining what you are doing in Web3, why you are doing, and what is your personal definition of DeFi? And thanks again for joining.
Hello, guys, and welcome everyone. Welcome in first online conference. My name is Kirill Mishanin. I'm the CEO and founder of Infundriver Capital. We are a Web3 investment company from UK, from UK Innovate program in London. So we bridge in centralized finance with decentralized finance. We raising capital and classical from venture capital, private equity, and we invest in decentralized finance. My background starts 7 years ago. From a digital agency, it transferred to ICO agency. We raised a huge amount of ICOs back in 2017. When we start to dig at the technology itself, I was part of IBM Blockchain Labs back in the days, and we built a huge amount of supply chain solution from Myers to DHL. And then later on, I decided that the only use cases which really market needs to, it's decentralized finances. This is the same layer of finances, but more easy to connect with digital assets. So you could get a loan or you could raise your campaign of issuing token. It's two different ways, but still it gives you opportunity to run your project, to run your startups. That's why I'm here. I'm glad to share my experience, and thank you for inviting me.
Thanks to you. Michael,
I think
excuse me, your vision of DeFi and how it could, or it's concretely already disrupting the traditional finance, and how it is disrupting, if it's the case.
Yeah, I mean, this is, just coming back to what Karen and Kevin said. Obviously, the ideal future is one of that of intermediaries or centralized parties completely removed from the equation, so a more peer-to-peer world. But I believe we're a long way from that, mostly because one, education across the world to be able to understand the technology that we're going to be using, but also making sure that it's provided in a safe way to customers as well. So making sure that laws are in place that protect investors or customers is absolutely key. So what has DeFi done to date? Well, essentially what we've seen is a rise of a new asset class, and particularly here at BCB, what we've essentially constructed is a fund product to be able to give individuals or customers of BCB exposure to the capital inflows to DeFi so that they can earn a return. And for me, having that alongside, traditional sort of fund products, whether that be equities, whether it be fixed income, VC, or even commodities, it just goes to show the growth of the industry and how much value that actually brings to the table. So the great thing about it there is that the asset class itself is asynchronous to the rest of the market as well. It's providing completely different returns. And that's great for an individual's portfolio. It means that you're diversified a little bit and can hedge a little bit of your normal traditional market exposure. So it's providing more opportunity, more choice, and that always returns this concept of consumer surplus back to the individual. And I think that's what actually DeFi represents, is that return to the power of the individual and actually receiving that value. We talked about Web 2 earlier, how much data we've handed over to corporations, or content that we've handed over to corporations without receiving what will be our fair share. Well, DeFi has the capabilities of turning that right around, providing that to the individual in the end. So that's how I believe DeFi is changing the world. It's returning that value back to the end user.
Karen, you want to add a word?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Michael was saying. So I guess it's true, we can say that DeFi does replicate existing financial services that we see in traditional finance. And that includes everything from core banking and lending and trading activities. But I think that there are many opportunities. There's really a lot of unique ways in which, a lot of unique attributes for DeFi, which will allow us to, as he said, to provide a lot of different opportunities for both the companies and the client side. So definitely, I think we can definitely simplify some of the processes. There's a lot of things that we can automate, of course, using smart contracts. And we can also reduce a lot of transaction costs. We can increase control to the user. And just to tell you like a real life use case with Fiat24, what we're doing is we're disrupting traditional finance because we really leverage the power of smart contracts, which does a lot of the work that humans traditionally do in a bank, because we kind of do payment services. So we can operate with very few people in our office. We rely on the technology to handle all these transactions, and many of the operations which normally require a person or even multiple people to carry out. So, I mean, using blockchain technology in general, we can be more efficient. Clients can do transactions anytime across the world, across borders. And that's really different than the way that you would send money or receive money through a bank. We also have like less to spend on IT infrastructure, which is another way that we're leaner. So I think, yeah, and the benefits of DeFi are so many, whether we're talking about lending or borrowing and saving. I think DeFi can really duplicate or replicate a lot of the things that we have in traditional finance, but just more efficiently.
Thank you. Kirill, I understand that you invest in DeFi projects, but DeFi, it's a lot of things from, it can be Launchpad, it can be DEX, it can be a liquid asset project. What are the use case you are the most involved in? Is there anything in particular on which you really invest and trust? You see something emerging more than other use case in DeFi?
Yes, thank you for the questions. Actually, we are pure Web3 fund. We start from DeFi. 2.5 years ago, we issue our fund token. So we create a staking algorithm. All seed round investors who stake our token, they generate extra token, and we supply those extra token with profit which our fund generated. It was our first step, how we was fundraising as a fund. So we later on we issue a legal company in Panama. Later on we open office in UK. Later on we get in the crypto license, etc., etc. But the true value of DeFi is easy access to the financial assets. As a founder, I just had back in the days one pager, brief explanation of token economics and what value brings into the market. The more you buy my assets, the more I generate profit, the more I do back payment, and the more I could invest into Web3 startups. Nowadays, we became bigger and bigger, and we start to buying real estate assets. For example, we have social projects in Pennsylvania, in US, and we buy assets. We get a loan from local banks like Citizen or JP Morgan. We purchase extra house, etc., etc., and profit which we generated, we transfer it into crypto and put into our reward token. This is how we structure the DeFi and centralized finances which already exist. And that is why the huge potential. Regarding the investment, we are focusing on technology projects. For example, we invested on early stages in decentralized exchanges like Uniswap. We invest in centralized exchanges on UAE region. Right now, we are focusing on this region, like Emirates Exchange. We raised them $1.2 million to build centralized exchange. So we're focusing on gaming industry, which really bridge the technology, not like extra layer of marketplace or whatever. For example, we right now get a startup from US who are doing verification on the voice. It means you could do transaction with your voice. It's good for gaming, it's good for gambling, it's good for any Web3 or metaverse infrastructure, because it's solution itself. Doesn't need to build a lot of layers of nothing that people doesn't need it. Bring a technology which helps in real life. For end customers, they are not care. Is it Web3? Is it blockchain? Is it Web2, Web1, whatever? Give them a product which they will use.
It's well said. Give them a product they will use, and that will solve a real problem. Kevin, what are you the most involved in DeFi? What do you believe are as the most promising part? I personally, I used to say that my grandparents were farmer. No, I'm a farmer in a Web3. I'm a liquidity pool provider. I stake. I explore mostly everything time to time. It's a great experience. Time to time a bit less, but I love this idea that I'm a kind of as a simple person. I'm a kind of a bank. I contribute to a financial system. What is your point of view about it?
Well, if I understood your question correctly, you want to know from me what are some potential trends that I personally see in Web3 or DeFi?
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I just can speak for myself. What I see right now and what I think, no financial advice, obviously, has a lot of
And no emoticons,
potential.
guys.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
is no
exactly.
rocket, nothing.
No money back or something like that. Well, I would say the whole derivatives sector obviously can become huge, right? Just looking at the traditional market, it's one of the largest markets out there. The same applies to bonds and similar markets. And I believe the more boring Web3 gets at some point and the more properly regulated it may get, the moment it doesn't look like it, but that opens the doors for more institutionals and also actually for the target group that mostly invests into those assets. So that's something that I believe can become huge from a pure market perspective. From a technology perspective, I believe, especially when it comes to, sorry, buzzword, zero knowledge rollups, which is nothing else than some kind of, let's put it that way, more efficient, trustless, more scalable network on top of another blockchain that helps to, let's say, settle more transactions faster in a secure way. These kind of things will be especially for those high volume and possibly even for microtransaction markets like, as Kirill said, GameFi, really relevant and interesting. So these kind of things, I believe, have a huge potential from a technological and market perspective. And on the other side, I would say what I really like is DeFi is becoming, at least in crypto itself, somewhat boring. Everyone is starting with GameFi right now. So there's a strong shift here, which I personally really, really like, because that means the hype is right now out there, right? Or most of it, or way less hype out there. And that, I would say, creates the playground for actual real world use cases, as Kirill also said, for products that people actually want to use, no matter if it actually involves blockchain or not.
Thank you, Kevin. Michael, in your opinion, what are or will be the use case or the product that will help to see a real mass adoption, a real adoption from institutional finance? actors? Because for now it's few ones experimenting. We can't say that voila, the institutional finance actors have adopted the DeFi. What should we do? What should we create, improve in order to see this happening?
I think, I found myself resonating a lot with what Kevin was saying. And the way or the path I see this unfolding is it's now time for the regulators to act. Otherwise, if we don't, we're going to see another Luna Terra, we're going to see another FTX unfold. And this is where I think as a global institution, this is where I feel the centralized parties are really letting it down, because it's going to end up harming the individual at the end of the day. CBDCs, despite their very contrary views, they actually could provide a gateway for regulation around blockchain technology, as well as eventually into smart contracts naturally. And I completely agree. Actually, gaming is a really good user case. It's got retail roots. There is the material exposure to the individual in terms of risk is smaller. But basically, we'll see all these amazing user cases erupt in DeFi, and it'll be a exponential upwards in terms of like growth and demand. The ecosystem still needs to grow outside of its initial remit. Right now, it's still very closed off circle. You're interacting with other crypto firms or crypto individuals. So actually, for me, the best way for mass adoption is connecting this old world to the new, and being able to take real world assets and put them onto the blockchain, and then having individuals face off to that. But it's our role as essentially builders within this space to, again, provide a very safe and easy and intuitive way. We shouldn't be thinking so much that individuals will transact using essentially a completely different currency that might be alien to them in this first point. But actually, I'm going to use my dollar. Oh, it's an interface. I'm seeing that this is a dollar. I'm seeing this as a euro, and I am going to purchase a treasury, some equity, but it's just all powered by the blockchain. And I think that's where we have to get to as an industry, and rather than like sort of presenting somebody who might not have as much financial knowledge or know-how around technology to go, okay, like, what do I need to do here next? So that's for me where I see it really going, connecting old and new. And the best trend that I'm seeing so far is protocols that are connecting crypto, stablecoin, return to traditional assets in the market. And I think Maple have done a great job in doing that with trade invoice financing. But there's so many others that are starting to do this now.
Interesting. So you have a few times, guys, talk about a better regulation in order to create the safe ecosystem context to see more institutional investors. We with Web3 Stronger Together, we are not here to propose any regulation, but also proposing to improve our ecosystem from inside, based on our personal values and also our behavior. When we talk about regulation, I often ask, I'm not sure if it will change radically the behavior of the people who don't want to respect anything, and nobody. For me, the consequence of Luna collapse or FTX, I'm not sure that a strong regulation could change anything. It's based on the human behavior, but I can understand that for institutional, it's needed to have a clear, let's say, framework to try to escape this. But what do you think What is your personal point of view about how the ecosystem try to auto-regulate itself? Someone has a point of view about it? Yeah, Kirill?
Yes, as I'm faced 70% with venture capital, with private equity, with invest bankers, with institutional clients, I need to be at their part of the boat. So it means that I need to know regulatory. I need to know the investment framework. For example, if I had a deal with institutional investors, for example, with invest banker, they give me a loan. So I covered that loan officially through license, through crypto license. I transfer money to money service business license to the verified KYC partner who transfer it to crypto. And then I invest in Web3, I invest in liquidity pools, I do trading wherever. Once I generate commissions, once I generate the profit, which I prove to institutional investors, I return it back. Institutional investor doesn't care about Web3 at all. They care about profits and they care about security. So, for example, if you are not secure, if you are not back up your use cases by real assets, it's really hard to sell your solution. For example, in our case, we secure our assets 50% by real estate. So we get a loan, we back up that loan by real estate. If something goes wrong, the investor, they have official document where we could sell those assets and at least return 50% on investments. So this is the reality. As I said at the beginning, everybody should do their stuff. DeFi is just back-end technology. So we are technical guys. We understand how it works, but for end customers, they are not care. We are in finance world. They are in some regulated world, and it's never change. In one day, when government will connect the value of token equally to value of contract, where will be the change? Only after it. Then I could go with my token, which gives me 10% shares of real estate. They will give me real estate on legal basis, on loyal basis. It means in parallel, nobody will sell my real estate on physical paper written by a legal team. My token is only asset which I could prove that it belongs to me. Only after it, the technology will blow up immediately. It goes high rocket, skyrocket to the moon or whatever. Only after this. Right now, we should merge centralized finance with decentralized finance. We should work and we should know all regulatory from one side and all technology and some bugs or whatever backend problems on other side. And we should secure the assets.
It's
This is the
it's
logic.
it's an interesting point, and I hear it's echo in me. I mean, I talk. I often talk about coexistence and cooperation. I don't think that we will have one relating or replacing another one. I think it will be a combination of both. What is your point of view, Karen?
Yeah, so I have to agree with you. I think DeFi won't end banking because banks aren't stupid. And they catch on to new technology, and they have dedicated teams who do monitor, fintech. But on the other hand, I believe that banks are kind of stuck in the legacy operations that they've had in place for so long that it's kind of, they are kind of impervious. They are susceptible to being disrupted by even the most simple of fintech. But yeah, I think that DeFi applications will disrupt their traditional space, but I think that they will kind of work hand in hand together. So yeah, I mean, I think how fintech picked off features that opened doors to all of these apps that we have, like e-banking, and then that kind of garnered millions of customers. I think DeFi will evolve in the same way. They will find a way to coexist. So yeah, I mean, I think we can already see that, banks are taking note and traditional finance are, they are paying attention to what is happening in DeFi. So I think that it will just coexist.
So if I summarize, a clear regulation and a strong cooperation between institutional actors and the DeFi one. Kevin, your last word. We are close to end this debate. It's really interesting to get all your point of view. So the next big step, how we contribute rather than facing a regulation coming, how could we contribute to design this regulation, and what should we do to engage a better cooperation, a co-creation of what will be the future of finance, a combination of traditional finance and DeFi?
That's a good question, and I would say it has a lot of, let's say, angles that you could actually look at it. Basically, when it comes to regulatory frameworks, changes, or when we talk about disruption, these kind of things take time, right? Especially when there are already systems in place that work in general, right? Traditional finance works. It's just not, or somewhat works, right? But it's just not very efficient. And I would say as long as these new fintechs, and I agree with everyone here on that point, don't actually are a threat to these big institutional institutions, which, as Kevin said, are investing and actually going into that space to some extent as well, right? There won't be much change, right? I think, as Kirill also said, these kind of things will move closer together, right? We won't have something like full decentralization, trustlessness, whatever we actually originally wanted, and we won't have or won't keep that traditional system that we have right now. Just takes some time. It takes the regulatory framework, which will of course, be built upon failures that we have, FTX and Luna and Co., but also on good use cases that are not crashing down to earth, right? And billions of funds are vanishing. So I guess at some point, or I hope at some point, regulators will or are already getting a better understanding of this technology and are able to regulate it in a way that it's beneficial for them, for the economy, and also, of course, in the end for banks, because as Kevin said, they are not stupid and they will highly likely continue to exist. That would be my take.
Thank you, Kevin. Michael?
Yeah, for me, it's intergenerational change. Unfortunately, we will not be the main beneficiaries of this new DeFi world that we're moving towards. And I completely agree with Karen. We will still have the JPMs, the Citis, the Goldman Sachs of the world, but it will be a different entity. It'll be a different beast in compared to its current form. And essentially, I see it as a slow drift to a pure decentralized world, and this is why I believe in the short run and the medium run that centralized institutions will remain and act as the gateway to help accelerate the use of the potential that blockchain technology offers for the world. And you can really look at some of like key institution sort of like examples. I mean, think about the institution of democracy. And originally we had decision-making bodies centralized in essentially the words of a royal, of the aristocracy. It would have been unfathomable probably 1,000 years ago, like even when we from going from that model to like a one person, one vote. Even though the ideal existed from ancient times, we've come along so now that we've done that with political values, we can also do it with financials. So I do see a point in the future where we would remove essentially the need for trusted centralized parties to be able to manage our financial affairs, and that we can transition to a trustless state.
Thank you for sharing your vision, Michael. Kirill, the last word.
Yes, thank you, guys. Let me summarize from VC perspective and merging centralized with decentralized. For investors, for classical investor, there are two key points: where the money comes from and how you generate profit, and how you further use it in your DeFi ecosystem. If you verify your official profit by official tools, for example, I purchase currency on exchange, I pass KYC, this is how initial money comes from. Then I start doing trading, DeFi, whatever. Then I return it back, withdraw it to my bank account, fix the tax profit. It will go smooth and it will go fast to the market. If you do any stuff which are undercover, it's really hard to prove that your money are white. This is not a scam. This is not a money laundering or whatever. Try to be a step ahead of the system, and everything will be good for you and for market and for future growth. Thank you, guys.
Thanks to you, Kirill. And Karen, the last word.
The last word. Well, I'm just really excited to see what happens in DeFi this year, specifically. I know that it's been really a prolonged bear market. I think there's been a lot of damage done to consumer trust in crypto assets. I think we've seen that it's hurt a lot of businesses, big and small, but I think there is a silver lining, because despite the fact that there is negative concern in crypto today, I think in the aftermath of all of these dramatic centralized finance explosions, I think that next time that users decide to enter this space, they're going to think twice about trusting a CeFi exchange, and they will instead maybe opt to try out decentralized protocols. So I'm optimistic.
Thanks to you guys, Karen, Michael, Kirill, and Kevin. It was really exciting discussion, really interesting to get your different point of view. I see that we have a kind of consensus saying it's absolutely needed to have a clear regulation if we want to see institutional actors joining and taking part of the DeFi emergence. And what I keep in mind also, it's about cooperation, not trying to totally delete the existing system. And finally, it will take some time. We have to be patient. The To the Moon boys will be a bit disappointed maybe, but let's keep building together. Thanks a lot. Thanks again for joining this first Web3 Stronger Together virtual summit. And see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.